Hello everyone, and welcome to this somewhat depressing video about how algorithms really have come to ruin our lives. Well, rule our lives. In in some cases, ruin our lives does actually feel a little bit more apt. So maybe that was a Freudian slip if ever there was one. So, without further ado, what are algorithms? Basically, they're just how computers make decisions, or more fundamentally, how all electronics work. Every electronic device that has any sort of software on it, so a computer, a console controller, a keyboard, a mouse, even now, or for that matter, 3D printer. All of these devices have software on them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a lot of software, but it is still software. So what that means is the software is making decisions. What do I do with this mouse click? Do I have to do anything special with this key combination? Things like that. And they're often based on math or logic. Well, really always math or logic. And if there are any computer experts watching, you'll know that how computers express logic is really just math anyway. But from a regular perspective, it's going to be intricate mathematics for like artificial intelligence all the way down to, yep, you clicked that button, so I'm going to put the A key on the screen, right? Basically anything can constitute an algorithm in the purest form. So, this is where we get to how algorithms have really started to rule our lives. And before I get to things actually on the list, there's one that I thought of right when I pushed start on this recording. Traffic lights. Lots and lots of traffic lights now. In fact, almost all traffic lights in the area that I live are connected to some sort of software making some sort of algorithmic decisions, right? Maybe it's as simple as a sensor, sometimes pressure sensor. I think cameras have probably gotten more common, just connected to the light so that if it's 1 a.m. and somebody pulls up to the light from one side, it gives them the green light, right? So that's one simple instance. Other instances, though, is maybe you have a long highway going through the center of a town, and the town decides that they want to slow traffic down on that highway using their stoplights. So you can actually use algorithms to calculate what the least efficient stoplight pattern is through the town based on the number of vehicles and the average speed of vehicles, or the variance in speed of vehicles going through town on that road. So you can use your traffic lights to actively slow traffic down, or for that matter, speed it up on a particular highway. And there are good and bad reasons to do any of those things, but it is one subtle way in which something as simple as stoplights that most of us interact with every day of our lives will be used in combination with algorithms to decide how we behave. So moving on to the actual list, credit scores. This is hopefully a reasonably obvious one for a lot of us. If you've ever had to take out a loan for almost any reason, you've probably had your credit score checked. Or even, I think utilities will check credit scores, though I don't believe they usually do a hard credit hit. But either way, your credit score matters for a lot of things in the modern world, and is basically just an algorithm. And I believe there are 3 major credit agencies in the U.S., and I believe that they are all proprietary algorithms. So we don't even know how they decide, really. Then advertising. This has become a pretty big one over the course of the last several years, where they're trying to figure out, many companies are trying to figure out how to most effectively target advertising online, like you can on TV. For example, if it's 1 in the afternoon and you're watching the Home Shopping Network, you're probably one of a few varieties of individuals, right? To be able to be watching TV and interested in that channel at that time of day. They can learn a lot from you just on that. So an advertiser already knows about you just by the fact that you're watching that channel. For the internet, it's a little bit harder because they don't necessarily have immediate access to things like time of day, the sheer number of viewers at any given moment, the content that's being displayed along with their ad, things like that makes advertising much more complex and frankly worth less money when you're online. But because so many things are pushing online, there's been a tendency to try to figure that out, driven by industry. So now a lot of advertising is run purely by algorithms targeting you as an individual based on whatever companies such as Google or Facebook know or believe that they know about you as a person. They will target ads to you using their proprietary algorithms. And insurance is another one. For insurances, they'll plug in age, history, gender. If they have access to it, they'll probably tell you they don't, but I'm certain they do. Factor in race, things like that, or location, etc., into an algorithm. And that algorithm basically just spits out how much they should charge you for insurance based on, again, proprietary factors. That's why some companies like, what I think Progressive is one of them, does like a safe driving reward thing. Well, basically what you're doing is you're plugging a little device into your car that's tracking you using an algorithm to determine whether or not your driving habits earn a discount. And I'm not entirely sure on the exact details of how the system works, but at a fundamental level, that's what they're trying to do. They're collecting more data on you to feed their algorithm more information and telling you that if you do it, you'll get a better rate if you're a safe driver. I don't know if that's real life experience, but that's how it's marketed to us. Another example that's relevant to this video is YouTube recommendations. If I put a more sensational headline that gets more clicks on my YouTube video, or the same in Facebook, right, a Facebook post, I will get more serves of my content to users who have never seen it before, as long as I, of course, am listing it publicly. And that is part of why we're seeing a huge surge over the last many years in meaningless, sensational content, or headlines in particular, like, clickbait, right? That where the article behind that title, behind that grabbing image, doesn't actually contain any real meaningful information of any kind. It's just garbage. It may be totally fabricated, right? But it got served to lots of people because there was interest in it, because it was eye-catching. Another example that goes back a little bit farther in terms of how it affects our lives are the others also purchase, or the recommended for you sorts of categories on Amazon or Newegg or eBay or whatever. Pick your poison for online shopping, right? But all of those are determined by algorithms, right? They're figuring out what to serve you for recommendations based upon other things that you viewed or bought, etc. A particularly scary one, some sort of apocalypse crap, is policing. It's not particularly active in the United States yet, but some other countries are picking it up, and I'm sure we will unless we create laws that prevent it. Using computer algorithms to do your policing. Or a really good example is I think it's the social credit system in China. They're basically just trying to use artificial intelligence combined with a network of cameras to make decisions on the moral character, is their justification anyway, on the moral character of a person. And from there, it is an extremely small step to start actually using that for policing. And that can get pretty scary because basically what you're doing is you're taking a network of cameras that's collecting and tracking information on an individual, knowing nothing really about them, and trying to predict or assess whether or not they have committed a crime, or even just using artificial intelligence to try to match their face to a criminal's face from a photo or a still from a video to make an arrest based on a match. And that could be its whole video series, honestly. But all of those systems are terrifying and biased because, well, I mean, let's face it, they're programmed by predominantly white people. And also, they're just imperfect in general, right? Even giving as much benefit of the doubt as possible to the creators of that system and the desire to have that system exist, they just are not as good as people are at face matching, and maybe someday that'll change. Now, that isn't necessarily to say that people are perfect either. Here's looking at the last year and a half of events, but the trying to use computers to do the policing for us using intricate algorithms is interesting because I'm into computers and I'm into artificial intelligence. However, it is also scary because I am into those things myself. And one that's been really affecting us is the algorithms hiding in stock or equity markets. So computers have gotten really good at watching charts using algorithms, right? It's just an algorithm that somebody made to watch charts. So they can make decisions based on stock sales or purchases based on what they see in charts. It's that easy. Or even they can scan sentiment for a stock. And this was something that we really saw for quite a long time when we had a president in the US who would repeatedly tweet about the market in general, or specific companies within the market, or tariffs or no tariffs, or things like that, right? Good, bad sentiment from his tweets would actually affect the market. And the reason for that, or a lot of the reason for that, obviously maybe you have somebody sitting in a room watching his tweets, but the reason that happened to the degree that it did, that the market was impacted as much as it was because it was easy to make an algorithm to try to get sentiment about a company or the market in general from the text contained in our former president's tweet. So if the sentiment was good, you could buy. If the sentiment was bad, you could sell, all in tiny fractions of a second after the tweet was made public. So even before a person could buy or sell based upon that tweet. And another time you see this is around when stocks are frozen. For example, if the monitoring agency thinks that they're being manipulated or they're afraid of what's happening, they will freeze trading on a stock or related asset. And you can often see right before or after trading, or after the freeze happens, depending on the situation, you'll be able to see some kind of odd activity coming from algorithms. Or another fun one, a really fun one, is if you haven't watched my video about stock options, it'll make more sense. This comment will make more sense if you watch that video, but stock options basically work by a stock getting to a certain price or exceeding or a certain distance away from a starting point, right? So it sometimes happens that a stock will end like a Friday at a very specific value, like an oddly even value, all things considered, or we'll spend a huge amount of a Friday hovering right around a very even value, plus or minus a couple of cents. And the reason, well, that can happen for lots of reasons, and some of them are innocent, but one reason that may happen that is less innocent is a computer algorithm is trying to get as many options to expire worthless as possible. So if you are the seller of options to a buyer, and the options will make money if the stock price exceeds value A, right? And you sold other ones where the buyer will make money and you will lose money if the price goes below A, right? So you have this line A in this example where you can make tons of money. Below A, you make less, and above A, you make less. So if you can take and buy or sell enough of a stock throughout a day, if it's close to that point A that you really, really like, if you can buy or sell, or some combination of both, enough stock throughout a day to just keep the value right on A as the options that you sold expire, that means you can make a lot of money from both sides because you basically locked the stock to that value A. And everybody who bought options, either the good side up or the bad side down, is losing money. So that's a much more subtle, but I would guess increasingly common place that algorithms are used. So these are only a few examples. Oh, there's so many. I just picked some of the ones that I thought would be the most relevant or understandable. But there really are tons and tons of places where algorithms genuinely rule our lives. Like the software behind a police radar. What is that? That's an algorithm, right? A radar is hardware, but the algorithm the thing that tells them the number is software influenced. So that's an algorithm. There's just so many examples, and they really do, all the way from like a smart fridge that has the temperature readout, the outdoor temperature readout on the display, or an outlet that you can push a button on your phone to shut off or turn on. All sorts of stuff like that. It's all ruled by algorithms. So if you have a topic that you would like me to dive more into, because some of these things I do actually know a fair bit about, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one.